is Jarrett Rush. I'm the Director of Content Marketing here at Idea Grove, and I am joined today by Kady White. She is the woman who heads up our digital marketing practice. And Kady, I think that of all of the disciplines we have at Idea Grove, yours is the most fluid. You know, mine is content, and content is kind of content. Things change, but they change a little more slowly. And for you guys in the digital marketing space, that's not the case, is it?
Yeah, I think even the fact that you refer to it as digital marketing as opposed to just marketing is a good kind of way to recognize that. Up until I think probably the last couple of years, people tend to treat them separately, you know, marketing versus digital marketing. But nowadays, I think almost all marketing is digital marketing, and there's so many kind of sub-specializations within that. So email, social, content is definitely part of it, all these different things within it. And I think that's what kind of keeps it dynamic, keeps it always changing, keeps it always keeping up with the times, which I actually appreciate. It's part of the reasons I enjoy my job.
So why is it important for people to kind of stay on the ball with things that are happening in digital marketing? It's not just necessarily trends, is it?
No, it's definitely not trends. So when you say trends, to me, that kind of means maybe on social media, there's a trend to post a particular type of content or different things like that. But at the heart of digital marketing, there's so many kind of moving parts and all those individual parts are also kind of on their own path as well. So it's more than just kind of following trends. It is really trying to keep up with a few different things. I think that includes the tools that we use. So I think tools, that means marketing automation software. So obviously here at Idea Grove, we're Hubspot partners, and we spend a lot of our times in tools like Hubspot that help us, automate. But there's also lots of other tools out there that do similar things. We're talking about search engines, so companies like Google or Bing. So as far as the tools we use, that's definitely applicable, as well as the actual strategies we use. So I think both those things together really contribute to, kind of that perspective.
And how do you keep up? What are there things you're reading, or there people you're listening to? How do you make sure you're staying on top of what's happening?
Sure. So just like any industry, there's definitely thought leaders. So I think I really, as a person, just value professional development. But in digital marketing specifically, I think it's really important to pay attention, again, to what the tools are doing. So, Google has algorithm updates all the time. Marketing tools are always adding new features. As platforms add new features. I don't think all thought leaders are created equal. So there are some that I really enjoy that I think are really good at providing valuable kind of insight and perspective into what's going on with things. There are some, because given the nature of digital marketing, that probably are having a platform just to have a platform. So I think it's about finding a thought leader that, again, their voice really resonates with you, something that is tangential to what you do. So again, I mentioned that digital marketing has a lot of like sub specialties. So I might not spend as much time doing SEO or search or ads. I spend more of my time doing emails or inbound, that type of thing. So finding thought leadership kind of within your specialization, I think, is really important.
And I know that, like we said at the beginning, things influence digital marketing or marketing differently. Things like GDPR has really affected email and things you can do there. Consumer behaviors have really affected website design and the way you look at website design and think about your website. What are some of those things that may have been best practices, or maybe not best practices, but acceptable practices in the past that maybe aren't as much now?
Yeah, well, I think you highlighted a couple of very good ones. So email marketing is something, even in recent months, we're in the middle of, COVID-19 global pandemic, which really kind of shifted, caused a lot of marketers to have to pivot, strategies really quickly. So email marketing was one of the channels that we saw a really big growth sector in in recent months, but email marketing has always been really important. I don't think it's ever quote unquote died. Some marketers might make that argument, but so you mentioned GDPR, which talks about basically data privacy and making sure that we as marketers have consent to market and communicate to people. I think that's been a really important development that has shifted best practices. So I think, 3 to 5 years ago when I was doing email marketing, it wasn't best practice, but it was kind of acceptable to maybe purchase a list. And there's, vendors out there that will you can pay to aggregate contacts that maybe fit your audience. And it was kind of acceptable to purchase a list and maybe, run an email marketing campaign to that list. Whereas now, as we're seeing this shift to more data privacy and consent, which GDPR is technically not the law of the land here in the US, we kind of consider it the best standard to follow. I think going forward, it's not the law yet, but it will be. I think, certain states like California are starting to legislate stricter privacy standards. And I think that's the future of email marketing. But ultimately, email marketing is most effective when you're marketing to people that want to hear from you. So I think things that you were able to get away with a few years ago, you can't really get away with in email marketing. There's a lot stricter kind of enforcement of these things. So if you are continue to email folks that have not consented, you could, potentially get your email deliverability suspended, or even lesser kind of consequences, like your deliverability starts to land all of your emails in your junk folder, in people's junk folders, even if it's just, even if it's not a marketing email. So there's more consequences now, I think, that we're seeing. People are getting smarter about email. Email inboxes are more crowded than ever. So even tools like Gmail, which if you use it, that it separates kind of your inbox from your promotions, from your social alerts, those are all segmented for you already. So I think it's important to keep up with best practices, because what was good 2 or 3 or further back years ago for email marketing, you can't really get away with anymore.
And you said, just a point of clarity for myself, you said if you're seen violating those buying lists, things like that, and you're in violation, that will also could affect personal email as well?
Yeah, so if your marketing emails come from the same domain as your company, so if you have, your website is www.company.com, so all of your emails are, bob@company.com, all of your marketing emails come from a company.com email address. If you continue to kind of email market and deliver to folks that don't engage with your emails, or even worse, report you as spam, or file a canned spam complaint or something along those lines, it will not only affect your marketing emails, it will affect, so if you just email maybe a vendor or a partner that you work with, your emails could potentially start landing in junk folders across the board.
Wow. What about SEO? I know Google is always tweaking their algorithms. Other search engines are as well. What's changed there? What do people need to be aware of in terms of maybe just this most recent release from Google in terms of the algorithm?
Yeah, so SEO, probably more so than a lot of other digital marketing kind of tangents, is always changing, because the search engines are getting so much smarter at trying to figure out what exactly people are looking for. I think, when I started in digital marketing, 8 or 9 years ago, it was all about keywords. So marketers would then kind of ruin it by stuffing pages full of keywords and the page titles and the metadata across the page. So after a couple of years, Google was like, "No, we're on to you guys." So in recent years, it's been less of a shift. It's been a shift away from keywords and more into kind of like long tail queries. So we're thinking about AI, we're thinking about, when you type something into Google and it kind of auto completes what you're saying. It's less, keywords are actually less important. They hold less weight in page rankings. So now from an SEO perspective, we want to think more about usability. So are people, when they land on a page, are there authority indicators that say, yes, this page, answers that query? Are people spending a good amount of time on that page, or are they bouncing away really quickly? Are they visiting other pages, that might be signaled as related to that? So we're seeing kind of those way more heavily from an SEO perspective than just keywords. And so I think even currently, so much of the conversation around SEO is around keywords. And a lot of the conversations I think we even still have with some of our clients are about, well, let's look at our keywords list. So while I think keywords are still important, I think there is a strategic shift away from those in order to make your content more visible to search engines, just because they're getting way smarter.
You said usability is going to be a factor, or you going forward in getting your site found. What kind of shifts in web design and web practices have you seen, or are you expecting to see with this new change?
Yeah, so one thing that HubSpot in particular has been preaching for at least the past several years is a concept called growth-driven design. And what that is rooted in is, so typically, 5+ years ago, if you wanted to build a website or hire an agency to build your website, it was kind of a really lengthy process. You sat and mapped out your full site map. It was a really heavy lift getting, from writing the content to creating the wireframe, and you did the whole site all at once. And then so you built everything, and then you kind of put it out there in the world, and that was it. And that was how you did a site launch. With growth-driven design, the way HubSpot has approached it is to turn it upside down a little bit. So if you're thinking about a site launch, we want to make sure that we are making decisions for usability that are based on actual data and things that we see people do. So if you've already built the whole site, it's much harder to go back and make changes and optimizations if you've already done all that up front. So they recommend with GDD or growth driven design to start with a launch pad. So start with your really high priority pages, usually your home page or your services pages. But rather than launch the full site all at once, you launch things in waves. And so you kind of launch the first wave, you look and see what the data tells you as far as usability, and then you make optimizations, and it's kind of a continually ongoing optimization process with your web design. It's not just okay, we've launched our website, it's out there now, and now we don't have to look at it for another year or 2 years until it's time to build another one. So growth driven design is great in that, again, it's data driven. So it's all about looking at the information and what it's telling you, rather than your assumptions about what people want to see on your website or what they're going to do on your website. So that's another, I think, shift we've seen in recent years for digital that will continue to go forward.
Well, Kady, thank you so much for taking a few minutes and answering my questions today. I think you gave us a lot of really great information.
Sure. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.